Anybody who remember this one? Al Stewart, Time Passages.
All around the day.
This really brings me back to California because I was living in California when this song was out. It's very contemplative. And believe me, in that last installment when I said antithesis, I realized it was an antithesis. And that bugged me. I mispronounced it, like advertisement as opposed to advertisement.
It was late in December, the sky turned to snow. All around the day was going down slow.
Look up Al Stewart, Time Passages. That's going to figure in later on in my book as well. But right now, when reading this chapter, chapter 4, Danny's run into the actor she used to be in love with. She used to work in this record store, and she's run into him, and they've gone across the street to the restaurant that they used to kind of sit and talk in and all that stuff, and she learned about him, and they've gone across the street, and they're sitting there with each other, and this is kind of how chapter 4 starts. That was a milkshake, Danny. Keep it up, and they'll be carrying you out of here. Danny looked at her empty glass, blushed, then back up at him and smiled. And your point would be, 1 double Bailey's at the bar, and 10 minutes after walking in, they'd been seated in a corner booth at the back of Shilly's. Scanning the area for the girl that had dropped off their menus, Danny smiled again at the point of his smile, then jiggled the ice in her glass. It did go down awfully fast, though, didn't it? Do you think I should be worried? Before he could raise an amused eyebrow at the affected British accent, the waitress reappeared. Sorry guys, I got a Christmas party in the back, and we're searching people, and Janet's got the flu, and we haven't even heard from Jasmine yet. She pulled a pencil from her pocket. What can I get you? Another Daniels for the voice. Danny smiled, and a double Bailey's and the rocks for this one. The eyebrow made the lift this time, along with a lazy smile. Fine. Danny handed over her empty glass, then sat back against the buttoned leather of the booth and glanced around the restaurant. Almost 1 o'clock and busy still, but the suited clientele were laying back. PC to QT. The restaurant itself looked and felt exactly the same. Candles flickering on green formica tabletops. Airy garlands of smoke that dimmered butterfly Tiffany's. Diffused sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, and the gentle clink of utensils on china tickled the brass railings around each booth. I don't know what it is, Danny said softly. Atmosphere, I guess, but bars like this and furniture stores, I swear I could live in them. They feel so comfortable. Her eyes returned to him and lingered questioningly. I hope you don't mind my doing that, Stephen. Cornering you like that, I mean. Why would I mind? A wry smile flirted with her mouth. I could think of several reasons. So could you. He looked at her. We came very close to getting away unscathed, you know. If you're looking for an exit, this would be the moment. He smiled and shook his head. It hadn't occurred to me, Danny. His eyes were as direct as ever, but the warmth in them seemed genuine. She hadn't lost the imprint of either. Okay! The harried waitress reappeared, took a deep breath, and glanced over her loaded tray. Let's see, that's Jackie D for the voice, and double Bailey's for this one. The movement of his hand toward a pocket brought a quick shake of Danny's head. Not this time, Stephen. This one is mine. Keep the change, Leah. Leah's face flushed brighter. God, thanks. You just made my day. I know the feeling, Danny thought, as she took a leisurely taste of her drink, then set the tumbler down and placed her hands together in her lap. Here, it really is good to see you, Stephen. You have been okay? I have been okay. She eyed him for a moment, considering. then swiftly concluded that there was no need to worry about creating the wrong impression. Stephen Farragon was as familiar with her flirtatiousness as anyone alive. Well, you know, don't you, that you look marvelous, you know, seemingly marvelous, and you're no slouch on the vocals either. It's still the sexiest voice in shoe leather. A slow smile responded. The Billy Crystal Fernando Wallace mix had been short but credible. Yes, you did think so, didn't you? Almost as much as you did, Mr. Farragon. The droll look he impelled her with was reassuring. She was only kidding, and he knew it. So why haven't I been seeing you much on the tube lately? I mean, I hear you every time I turn around. Radio, voiceovers, no sightings though. I don't do that much tube anymore. I'm not as photogenic as I used to be. With the exception of Benji, not many of us are, and you aren't kidding, right? Another smile coiled his mouth. I disagree. You look every bit as good as Benji, although your hair's shorter. Before she could shoot it back, Leah reassembled. So much for that group. So what's it going to be for you two? Soup salad? You know, like the quiche's awesome. I think it's going to be another milkshake, Leah. Danny said, I'm obviously craving sweet today. In about 15 minutes? Nothing else for me, thanks. He handed the menus over, his smile a gleam of white beneath the mustache. Have you ever thought of drinking water when you're this thirsty? Danny laughed. Water? Interesting concept. But no, I'm not about to celebrate a glorious day like this with sparklets. You know, like, unlike you, I don't have this weather year-round anymore. He pulled a pack of Camels from a pocket. Ontario isn't that warm right now, I take it? It was Ontario, wasn't it? Danny nodded. They were calling for 1 to 3 inches of snow when I left. You remember snow, don't you? That white stuff on top of Mount Baldy? He smiled and tapped out a cigarette, lighted it, and dropped the pack on the table. I was born in Ohio, Danny. I know what snow is. Danny shook her head. You knew what snow is. You've got FOBLA written all over you now. He laughed and exhaled a draft of smoke. So, what brings you back? Have we just been discussing that? We have. I'm storing all the UVs my skin can handle. And where are you staying? With Katie? Danny's eyes wide. Yes. Katie McGaffey, you have a good memory, Stephen. I'm impressed. Yes, well, it was never very difficult. I only had to talk to do that. She smirked a smile, then laughed, and toucheed her glass. Still. They looked at each other for a moment, then he cleared his throat and took another drag. So, how long are you planning on being a solar panel anyway? 19 more days. Longer if I can find some way to shut down the airport. I flew in 48 hours ago, and there's close to 100 clicks on the alarm already. Really? Yeah, really. And I know what you're thinking. It's about time she learned how to drive. Actually, no, I wasn't thinking that, but now that you brought it up, how you managed to live here for, what was it, 11 years? Without knowing how to do that. He shook his head. Taxis, Danny said, and I slaughtered a few dozen Tommy cans, but I did do some traveling when I was here, you know. I wasn't that much of Miss Havisham. He gave the best damn invitation I've ever seen. Danny's laugh was rich, throaty. You flatter me. I never thought it was a good imitation of anything. Indeed, he thought. I may not have driven, but I had friends who did, not to mention the strolling players. I mean, I can thank that job for most of my sightseeing. We covered a lot of schools with those players, more than even I thought. If it hadn't been for vacations with Kay, there's a lot of places I never would have seen. San Diego, Santa Barbara. Palm Springs flashed through her head, but she stuffed that one back in her yesteryear pack. I'm just chauffeuring myself around this time, that's all. From the moment you got your hands on the keys, apparently, he said, although sightseeing the country isn't exactly what it's getting at. Puzzlement clouded her face for a moment, then she laughed. Oh, no, okay, you mean the way I Just havershamed myself in life. Yeah, that's true. I do have a helmet for a head. There was a slight tick at the corner of his mouth. Well, I wouldn't put it quite like that. As I recall, Stephen, at the time you had several ways of putting it. Unrealistic, idealistic. I didn't think there's too many more istics you could have used. Although I still don't get why idealistic is really all that bad. That's glass half full stuff, isn't it? She looked at him with an insouciant shrug of her shoulders and a palm-up shrug of her head, and then managed a Vinnie Barbarino what? As a smile gradually took over his face. As I recall, he said with a careful flick up of the ash, at the time the glass was always half empty, but that does appear to have changed. She took that in, then smiled and tissed a shake of her head. Not always, Mr. Farragut, I'm afraid. Not always. But today, I lifted the brow, definitely. As lascivious as I hope that sounds. And I don't probably get that you guys are going to follow this, but you know, when I get it published, if I go to like the Shark Tank or the Dragon Den and say, I got this book, but it's a life's work. And I understand what drives people crazy, like doing the Hemingway maneuver, where you write, and go back and edit. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 25 and a half years. Anyway, thanks for your support.